Oh,
We're
are you
live.
there? Live. We're live? All right, now this should be through. All right. I literally had someone just asking me, hey, you guys going live tonight? And I was like, I thought we already were.
Here we
Here
go.
we go. Excellent. All right. You got to have a little trouble, at the beginning, trying to figure all
Yeah.
this stuff out.
Exactly.
Again, especially when you're dealing with a cop and a firefighter. Really, it's not good for anybody, but, it is what it is.
Yep.
So anyway, how was your week?
My week was good.
good.
Yeah, I got most of my workouts in, but
Nice.
I have a feeling you got more than I did. So
I missed one day.
Okay.
And so it was double bad. Like, I actually felt pretty guilty the next day because not only did I miss a day, but that day my son made a brookie.
Oh.
So I may have also had dessert that day, which I don't normally do. Which is, it's so funny because since I've cut out sugar and stuff like that, what's going on? We're getting messages, so cool.
Yeah.
Like since I cut out sugar, anytime now that I have it, I feel like I'm hungover the next day. Like it's weird the way the body reacts to it.
Yeah,
Crazy.
totally.
Yeah, totally.
I have a thing for Butterfingers.
Oh,
So there's that. And they stay in the freezer, and I try to just use them as treats. But
I like the word "try" in there. That's just pretty good.
I tried.
Yeah. Yep.
Excellent.
Mhm.
And I did.
Yeah, we're back, man.
We're back,
We
man.
are. I'm excited. I did not do as well meditation wise as I should have, and I could tell. I think I got 3 times in this week. And that's an everyday thing for me, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's another
Yeah.
one that costs me if I don't do it. So.
Yeah, for real.
I found
It sounds funny, but
Qigong, a friend of mine turned me on to it. It's a physical
You
meditation.
told me you actually
super
sent me
cool.
stuff
Super
on that.
cool.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
That's right.
That's my
Yeah,
favorite.
That's my favorite.
I have a hard time.
Just sitting and being quiet and trying to.
I can't do that.
I can't do that very well.
I can understand that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten better. It wasn't something I was always good at, but I have gotten better at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
You like my Princess Leia
headphones?
I do. Those are stellar right there. That's perfect.
That's the way it goes
That's the way it goes today. I don't have earpods.
And apparently you can only hear me if I have a microphone.
So here we go.
That's so weird the way that is. Yeah, because you're just coming through my laptop right now. Otherwise I'd be in trouble. All right, so let's get.
Yeah. So
you had
you had questions?
I do. I got a question for you. It came into me, and apparently they like me more because they'll send me questions for you through me. But I get it. I'm more personable. You know how it is.
I'm new
to your circle.
They don't know me yet.
So this week we'll start with your.
I'm
I feel like you won the questions because people actually commented and literally gave you like, wow, man, his was so touching, and mine wasn't. Which again, the question I'm going to answer this week is a great question. Love the question, but I don't know. It says I need headphones. Oh, that's Abby saying that. Well, yes, you're probably right. I probably do. I wonder if it's coming through. If you all can hear Willy coming through mine. If you can, I apologize, but we'll work on that in the future.
Yeah.
But
here we go.
and
I just
also
added
hi.
some of the comments.
So my question that I got for you was, what is your greatest moment as a firefighter? Like, what are you most proud of? What's the incident that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the first time when they make you say your oath and get your badge, that's like the coolest moment. But besides that, as a working firefighter, I'll tell you what it is.
I have to give you the whole
story. So
This was my
very first fire as an engineer, as a driver operator. So I was in charge of getting the engine to the scene. And so the first time you're a working fire as an engineer there's a lot of stuff going on all at once. And it was the middle of the night, and I was always stressed out about not waking up. So I practiced really hard to like wake up and then figure out where we're going and then get everybody there safe. So this very first major fire, we came in as an apartment fire. Fire was on the second floor, and they're unknown occupants. So it was the middle of the night, so you could figure that it's probably full of people. And we took off. The ride was about 4 or 5 minutes away, and it was nighttime, so you couldn't see anything other than just there was an orange glow. So I knew there was a working fire, and it had snowed about 2 feet that night before, maybe 18 inches, something like that. So there's big drifts of snow everywhere. And as I pulled in, it's a giant apartment complex. So multiple buildings, probably 20 buildings. They're all 3 stories. And so as soon as I came around the corner, I saw some shadows of people jumping out of windows, and I knew immediately, like, here we go. This is going to be a job. And so I pulled in, and normally you would grab a hydrant, secure your own water source. I was the first engine due, and so but I didn't. I went straight to where the main egress was, where people I thought would be coming out. So there was kind of like 2 sides of, there's the apartment building, and then in the middle there was stairs, and the fire went from the second floor into the third, into the roof, into the attic. And so it was crossing over, and it was burning down now on the other side. So one half was on fire and the other half was about to be. And so I pulled up, and me and another firefighter got out, and I knew right away we had to do rescues because there was people jumping off the balconies and stuff. And so the first priority is always life safety. So you always want to rescue people if you can, the very first thing. So life is the most important thing. So we threw a big ladder to the third story of a balcony where a family was. And while I helped my other firefighter throw the ladder, then I ran back to the engine, and we had a thing called a deck gun on the top of the engine, and it would deliver about 750 gallons a minute. So a lot of water really quick. And I knew if I only had like 1,000 gallons of water, so it's going to go fast. And the only thing I could really think of doing was putting the stream where people would be coming out. And so that's what I did. And it was hitting the fire. It was in the roof already. And so as soon as I aimed the deck gun, then I ran back to where the ladder was, and there was a paramedic, and 2 of them actually came out, and they were helping. There was people jumping out of windows and stuff still, and there was a family on the 4th floor or 3rd floor. There was 4 of them. There was a mom, dad, a son, and a daughter, and 2 dogs. And so we got the people down off the 3rd story while this place is inferno burning. And these people's clothes were actually catching on fire. So it was right there on them. And and I can see why they didn't want to jump. It's 3 stories is it's kind of high, and even with snow, man, it's still, like it's still not, that's not a pillow when you land, so we went up and down and got the people out of off the ladder, and meanwhile, and then I had to do my job is pumping and try to secure a hydrant, and there's still stuff to do. And so I worked that fire for like 12 hours, trying to knock it out. And the whole roof was gone. And basically, the place was demolished at the end.
Yeah.
And what we found out was it was actually like supposedly someone was cooking meth in one of the apartments, and then it caught the rest of the place on fire.
At least it didn't turn into an explosion. Some of the meth labs, when they go, that's
it
in a hurry.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, but it was on a small scale, like some kind of homegrown cooker or something, and one little place. And so anyway, long story short, all the news and everybody starts showing up. The deputy chief shows up, and then I'm thinking like, man, I'm glad that this worked out okay. Nobody died. Like, it's an okay. This is my first time, so I'm like super nervous. I remember me and the other firefighter. He's not on here, so I can say, but he was having kind of a panic attack, and I'd be like, "Listen, like just breathe, and we'll be all right, man. Like we just were, And,
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes your brain minute to like kick in. What are you doing right now? And so fast forward. Couple months went by, and we had another house fire that one of our fire chief was trapped inside his own house, which was on fire, and that's a whole nother story. But I'll just tell you though, he lived, and then they had the town ended up giving us awards for our efforts, and So I got to tell you, like, this might make me cry, but I had not really achieved anything in my life up to that point, and I didn't have parents around who gave a shit, and so this moment when they invited us in to give us awards, so I got a Valor Award, and so did a bunch of other people for not only the apartment fire where we saved the family, but then the fire chief's house fire also. So they did it all at once, and I remember them waiting. So you're in this like city chamber kind of council area where they have meetings and everything, and then they had the family up there, and they call my name, and this little girl, she had to have been like 4 years old maybe. Um, she walks up and she gives me the plaque,
Oh,
and that was cool.
yeah,
It,
that.
it was it was just like, hey, this is what you sign up to do,
Yep.
and you did it. And I think, to me, why that means so much is, I feel like every man has this desire to show themselves like you can do it, you can come through, you have enough, you're good enough, like, has this innate desire to like prove yourself. And I felt like I proved myself that night, and in a lot of ways. And to have this little girl give me the award, and then just recognize like, hey, we're all here because we're doing a job, and this isn't really, you don't sign up to do it for accolades, but it does help because you're all the training you go through to get to that point, and it worked out good. So that was my proudest moment, and you made me cry.
That's a really good one. I
Yeah.
can't argue that. If
Yep.
you win
So
2 weeks in a
everyone
row,
there.
I'm not going to be a happy man. I'm telling you that right.
Yep. I got a bunch of those, man.
No, that was actually really good. I do have a question that when you were talking about the stuff, because I've thought about this before and I've always wondered how much the gear that you guys have to put on, how much does it weigh? What is it, like 50 pounds or something like that or more?
It started out heavier, so it was about 50 pounds, and then we got different size air packs, which were
Yeah.
about 10 pounds lighter, and so then
Okay.
it's about 40 pounds. And then just think of wearing like a snowmobile suit or something. You don't have those
Yeah.
in Florida, but something
Thank
really
goodness.
thick, like, and you just, so you're usually burning up on the inside, but you're happy to do it. And it sounds gross, but it's sweaty and disgusting on the inside of your bunker gear because you're carrying 40 pounds and then you're working out,
That was
like
going to be the
on
next part of
top
my
of
question. So
that.
you got to go up and down these stairs, and they're not easy stairs to go up and down, right? I mean, they're not.
No, this was actually an extension ladder, a 40-foot extension ladder
Oh,
that
jeez.
up to the third floor, and then you got an angle, and we're in the snow, and so up and down, and obviously
So
I
you're
didn't
running
have
off
an.
adrenaline.
Yeah, I was. Oh, you definitely use adrenaline. I didn't have an air pack on, like air. I wasn't on air. I was outside, and it's a people probably criticize about that, but because anytime there's smoke, there's carbon monoxide. We talked about that last week. Like, that's really dangerous, and a bunch
Yeah.
of other chemicals from burning, like plastics and stuff. So, long story, you should always have a mask on, but I didn't. And sometimes it helps actually have air on because then you can hear yourself breathe, and you can, you're panting, and then you only have a limited number of time, usually like 16 to 20 minutes on an air pack, not per bottle.
Oh wow.
So, and that's if you're working, and sometimes it can go faster if you're like really, really working, like sledgehammering something or whatever. Like, you could suck down a bottle in 10 minutes. So that means you only have 10 minutes to get in and out. Um, so a lot of people don't wear masks when you're outside for that reason,
That makes sense.
because then you're always trying to get a new bottle. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, yep. This is good though. Uh,
Nice. That's so cool. Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah, man.
So my question actually came from Sunshine on TikTok. I even sent her a message then to say, "Hey, I'm going to be answering your question tonight." Um,
Mhm.
so her question came in quite a while ago, and it was, to give a little context, it was reference to another video I had done. But her question, you're going to love this question. Her question was, "How do I deal with the trauma?"
Mhm.
Um, and so for anybody that might happen to be new or um, doesn't kind of know my backstory, first of all, my claim to fame, if you will, I spent 2 years embedded with the mafia, isolated from friends and family, came home for a month, and then embedded with domestic terrorists for a year. And both cases, spent the majority of the time thinking I was going to die, legitimately thinking that I wouldn't make it through the cases. And then also in my career, I've lost more brothers and sisters than I care to remember, two of which were in my district with me, good friends, who were executed when they were working. I've had some bullets fly past me, definitely been shot at more than once. Been in some horrific fights. So I've kind of run the gamut in my career. It's been a very, very active career. Unfortunately, too, I've witnessed everything from a 3-year-old accidentally killed in a drive-by shooting to, I think it was a 6-month-old drowning in a pool and all that kind of stuff. So there's a background onto the trauma side of things, of what kind of trauma I'm dealing with. Those would all be examples of that.
Yeah, any one of those is traumatic, but you got a bunch of them.
Yeah, and as you and I've talked before, I did have a therapist that had been diagnosed with PTSD, and more so, or they think a bigger culprit of some of the issues I've gone through would be CPTSD, which is, tell me if I say this wrong because I get it wrong every time, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's when it's like multiple events over time, and it's not a singular event. It's complicated, or it involves moral issues like suicide, homicide, stuff like that, terrorist attack. Yeah.
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 Thank you, Abby. So, my question about how I dealt with the trauma. Well, for about a good 10 years, I came up with a plan of not dealing with it. And that seemed to work well for a little while, and then did not go well. So when I finished the second case, went back to work as normal. 2014, the end of 2014, I was forced to move out of Charlotte for safety, and that was when things were starting to crumble. I knew it. I chose to ignore it. I was fortunate in a sense. I didn't turn to drugs and alcohol and that kind of thing, which, I'm not definitely criticizing anybody that does. I get it 100%. I did a really good job of bottling things up, stopped sleeping, and let my body slowly destroy itself in a very painful fashion. And it got to a point of sleeping about a half an hour a night, and no immune system. I would get sick about every other week. I tried to work out consistently, but I was constantly sick, so that didn't happen very well. And then mentally, I started to tank. I can tell you, I was not, work-wise, I was not doing as good as I used to. Like, my mind was not functioning. I would forget everything. And so you get more frustrated with yourself as this is happening. Like, you find yourself in this dark place, and everything you do, you just go down further and further. I got bad enough to the point where I would think about suicide a lot. And I know a lot of, one thing that frustrates me, and I've heard some very good friends of mine even say it, that they can't understand how anybody, would ever contemplate suicide or commit suicide, that, they just don't get it. That they almost say that they're too strong to ever do something like that. That's a pet peeve of mine. Once you get in that dark place, you can get your mind to rationalize all of it. You can get to a point where you're thinking, really, my family is better off if I pull this trigger. You can come up with all kinds of reasons, and then the terror and the pain that you're feeling all the time, like, you completely feel like a failure in a lot of ways all the time. and all you can do is stay in the past. You cannot get yourself into the present. Your mind will not let you stay in the present for any period of time. So that's where I was at for a very
dark
long time,
place,
unfortunately. And then, we've talked about this. In August of 2022, I got very, very sick. And, for me personally, I totally believe part of that was God kind of intervening, because I was about to die. There was little doubt on that one. And then the sickness, they said, could have killed me. Like, my lungs were not functioning at all. I was in bad shape mentally and physically. So that happened in August 2022, in and out of the hospital until about Thanksgiving time. Then I was finally moving around some. It would take me about an hour to go 400 meters, to walk 400 meters, insanely slow and having to stop a lot. So this went on, kind of adjusted, did not seek help right away until about March of 2023. And I can tell you it was actually March 23rd of 2023.
All right.
That's when I made the commitment that I'm going to deal with the demons, with the trauma, and figure this out. The first thing, because I wasn't going to be able to do anything else. I wasn't going to be able to get good workouts, do any of that until I saw a therapist. I needed to kind of get a game plan and figure out, what am I dealing with? How, is this even, at the time I was like, is it even fixable? Or is this is it for me? And so I got lucky. Somebody connected me with actually a therapist that was retired but was willing to do some one-on-ones with me for a while, and also got connected in some group therapies, which I still try to attend. But that was when I started to learn how I was going to have to function. And Willie, you can elaborate much better than I can, but because I didn't deal with it early on and I waited so long, your brain kind of falters a little bit. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not as easy as a couple things and you're just back to normal type thing. Your brain processes kind of a little bit differently, if I understand it correctly. So I have to do a lot of things to, one, and a big part of it is recognizing when I'm about to slip, when my brain is going to start playing games on me and all that kind of thing. I do usually a ton of meditating. A lot of it is trying to find what works well for you. A lot of people turn to medication. I have no issue with that. Up to this point, I have not, knock on wood. I've been able, through meditation, through talking it out with people, even things like this actually help me. Putting it out there and getting it and talking. It's amazing what some of that does. And I'll let Willie explain all this in a minute, because everything I'm saying, I'm sure he's like, oh yeah, that's because of this, this, and this. I'm not smart enough to know all that part of stuff. I just know what it does for me personally. And that's part of the reason we're doing this, is because he can tell you the clinical side of things. I can tell you for me personally where I was at, what I'm going through, and all that. And I'm hoping by this that we also reach other people. That is a very, very big part of this. So through some of that, once I started sleeping 8 hours a night, once I started to feel better about myself, it is amazing the amount of stuff that improved in my life. And then stop getting sick, stop getting workouts. Like since March 23rd, 2023, recently I got COVID. But besides that, I hadn't been sick at all. Yes, I've been injured a few times, but that's just because I'm stupid and that's what I do. That's actually coconut's fault and things like that. But
coconut.
I had to have neck surgery. It was just ruptured disc, nothing huge. Second time. That's from playing football long ago. But I only missed 3 workouts with that. I only missed a few days with the ankle. Between eating healthy, but again, mentally, every time I post these workouts on all these social medias, I always reference it back to mental health, because that's where it starts. If you don't have good mental health, nothing else is possible. And it all starts, I'm not gonna say everybody's the same, but I can definitely say for me, it started with getting help, talking to somebody, and being willing to listen and take their suggestions and move on it and go with it, and see what happens. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, totally. Well, can I just say today's date is March 23rd. So if
Is today the
you
23rd?
decided 2 years ago today you were going to.
So I had a big. I didn't even. I did not realize that it was the 23rd. I was supposed to go. I said this whole thing. I was going to do a social media thing because I wanted to show pictures of where I was 2 years ago now. So I will do it tomorrow. It's going to be a day late. I can't believe today's the 23rd.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Well, let me also address a question in the chat. So to find a good therapist for trauma, I think it's like dating in a way, but not in a weird way. Okay, so you have to kind of choose somebody that you're willing to trust, because you can only do so much work that it's based on how much you trust this therapist. Because you got to be able to say and go places and be vulnerable and open, not at the first session, but eventually, like be able to tell them anything and not worry about it. So I think to find them, the first thing that comes to mind always is Psychology Today. Just as a website, you can Google search and kind of filter people out and see who has experience, who has, the specific types of trauma you're looking for, because there's different, things that people specialize in. So sexual trauma is a lot different than military trauma and first responder. But at the end of the day, it's pretty similar how it's treated. It's just finding somebody that you can trust or choose to trust. Asking for referrals is probably the best way, but you got to know somebody that's in therapy, So, but I'd say Psychology Today Therapist Finder, and we can put the link in the chat when we're done here, because I have to look it up. But that's how I would recommend if you don't know where to start. But second to that, I have to mention this because I've worked with cops. So backstory, I have a master's degree. I've been practicing counseling for like 13 years now. I work with first responders and military veterans and other people who've been traumatized. So big, small events. Anyway, with police, there's usually a psychologist or like some counseling type people attached to the agency. And what I'm going to say is don't go to them. The reason I say that is because they're attached to your job. And I've had a number of clients go for counseling and come back and they don't have a job anymore, because the people who are counseling are also doing fit for duty evaluations, their pre-employment psychological evaluations, and that's just, those need to be separate. Counseling, support services over here, and over here is like performance, job performance, and they need to be separate. So that's what I want to say about it. Sorry, I'm echoing.
Did I end up? Was I able to just? I may have fixed the echo. Is it any better now?
Yeah, let me see. It's usually when I talk because it's on your speaker, but it's okay.
Yeah, so I figured out. I had the mic right next to the speaker.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
it may be a lot better now.
Yeah. See, Abby knows what's up. She just said exactly. So we're talking about like the type of counselors to go for, people that are outside of your workplace. And, I think it's important for people to be able to trust that you can. I've had cops come to me and be like, hey, man, like, what are you writing? And I almost write no notes. The only notes I actually write are what we're going to do next. Like, what did he say or she say they were going to do? They're going to journal.
Thing. When I had to see the counselor after the second case, and she's sitting there doing that, don't think I wasn't trying to look over that. Like, the only thing I was thinking about then is I need to see what's on that piece of paper. Like, yeah.
And I have had, just so you're aware, and this is just education. What you and I are doing here, I have to say that because I am licensed and all that, and we're not doing counseling over the internet and live, public. We're doing education. But
I'm brave. I'm not that brave.
That's really brave. But I've had cops who I've met with for a number of years, and then they go get a new job, and then their new employer requests records. So, and I've also had that happen where they didn't get the job because of something that I wrote. So it's like police really need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Because that's not okay. Someone comes for help because they're involved in, like, let's just say an officer involved shooting. Of course they're going to have reactions to that. Anybody would. But you can't fault somebody for having reactions to a shooting and then not offer them employment later because of it,
Right.
even though they had like repaired and grown, and like they were not traumatized at the moment, they just were seeking help at the time, you know. And I won't say any more just for anonymity and confidentiality, but that stuff happens all the time, which discourages people from wanting to get help, you know. So we got to keep those things separate. And if you're a provider, or if you're working with a provider, they should be writing very minimal notes. They should be, you know, trying to keep that confidential. And you know, and if you can do it outside of your agency, even better,
Yeah.
versus like with the psychologist attached to the, you know, agency. If that makes
I
sense.
completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we need a safe. You need a safe spot. It's hard enough to be like, hey, I got a problem, you know, and then if you're in that dark spot, which I want to touch on suicide too, because I just finished a grant. It was 5 years. I gave over 630 counseling sessions to cops in this one area of Colorado. And during that time, we had no officer suicides. However, I had a lot of suicidal officers, and they're out there doing their job every day, but they're also on the edge, like mentally, emotionally, physically, and that's not okay either.
Right.
To be able, they need a space to like talk about stuff and figure things out, and it's usually not even about the job. It's more about home, what's going on at home. You had it different because you were on your cover, man. So like that, your home life, you probably, what was that like for, you know, like say a little bit about that for you. What was home life like for you, you know, as an undercover cop?
So, and that's, and I'll be perfectly blunt. Um, Almost all undercovers don't make it through with a family. You lose your family when you're undercover. I'm very fortunate, blessed to not. Um, but it doesn't, it's, even though I may have thought differently, and especially, so, your typical undercover assignment is kind of a day to day. You go home every night, and reconnect. When you obviously, this is extremely rare to do what I did, and I think it's becoming more rare. And I think it may be extinct at this point, which is a good thing in my opinion. This whole being gone for years at a time or a year at a time, and basically having no contact.
Yeah.
The, you
That's,
you like I thought, or I kid myself into thinking, as soon as I get back, things go exactly back. Everybody else's life hit a pause. I come back, everything's normal. That was not the case, obviously. Everybody learns to move on without you. I lost friends in the whole thing, which actually I've rekindled some of that now, so that's good.
hey, cool.
But it's, that took a tremendous toll, and that's one I still kind of work on everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so if I can say where to start, someone asked that in the comments. Where's like, how do you start to address, or someone asked you that, and let's just talk about that. For you, it started with, there were some physical cues that said, I'm not okay, I'm not healthy anymore. Like I'm not sleeping, like I'm not taking care of myself. So usually, diet, rest, and exercise are the first things to go.
Yep.
It's like the most basic things. We just, we don't need that right now. I'm
Yeah.
stressing. I don't need to eat. I don't need to sleep. I don't need to relax, you know, or
And you
maybe I can't. You know?
and because like, well, for me again, I don't like speaking for other, like I don't know other people today. Like some of the key things for me, I had the same thoughts go through my head in and out. I had the same nightmares about every single night. Half the time I couldn't, like I would wake up and it would take me a minute to realize, am I me or am I an undercover? Like where am I in that? And this went on and on. And so I mean there were definite signs. I chose to ignore them.
Yeah. I think that you said 10 years too, and I've noticed that usually it's mid-career for first responders, and I'd argue also military too, unless they're unless they've worked their way into a good command, or they have they're not deploying all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, but as an
Yeah.
undercover cop, like that's a long mission. 2 years,
Yeah.
that's a long time. Like most
Yeah.
military deployments are not 2 years.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Like from talking to military, I think the biggest difference, and that hurt long run the most, where usually military you still get to have some contact with your family,
Yeah.
phone, video, and not having any of that was, and it's so. For me, when I was undercover like this too, this is going to sound awful, but this is the reality. I did not necessarily want to talk to my family. I had to be this other person. Talking to my family brought me back to me, and being me gets me killed. So my family even knew the only way I would talk to them is if something was an emergency or something really needed to be talked about. Like I think there were a few times that we talked, and I talk about this in the book that's going to be coming out. But like in the second case, went to take a family vacation at the beach, and that was a warning sign. There, I was not I was there physically. I was not there at all. I couldn't. I know I took that vacation. I can't tell you a single thing about it now. My mind was not I did not come back to being me. I stayed out as being the undercover.
Yeah. So you had to separate yourself from who you actually are, and I think that being genuine, being able to self-assess what's happening. I call it a 360 because that's what firefighters do. When you show up, they might be like, go in here, the fire's in here, but actually somebody has to go around this thing and size it up, figure out what all are we dealing with. And then if you just run in, you don't know what is on the backside. So you're doing a 360, the size up. So I like that idea of people sizing themselves up. Do a 360. How are you doing? Do all of the systems. How are you thinking?
Absolutely.
Is it negative? Is it constantly complaining? Are you just like, I hate life, I hate life, I hate this, and I can't, is it negative that way? What about your, finances, your social circle? What about your physical health? What about your emotional well-being? Like, how do you handle emotions? Do you just shut them down, or do you, are you able to cry? Are you able to laugh? Like, how are you doing there? And I call it the review of systems. It kind of came from having a chart, because that's one of the things that counselors have to look at is the person's presentation. Are they disheveled? Are they taking care of themselves? Are they eating? Real basic stuff at the beginning. But I think you do come to a place where you're like, all right, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of living like this. And that's when you need somebody real close by to be like, hey, this is what you do.
Yeah. It's funny because some of the stuff you just mentioned, same thing the therapist said when I first got, one of the things early on, and still do, is several times throughout the day, what should you call it, temperature check, but a systems check, hey, how are you feeling? If you're feeling angry, dive into it at that moment. Well, why are you feeling? Try to pinpoint and open it up and, release it. Don't suck it away, or don't say, well, I'm just in that mood. Figure it out. And I think that's really great advice and important.
Yeah, that's good. Here's the other thing too, building on, there's a buddy system kind of mentality in the military, but also in firefighting too, and it should be in police too, but you're not always together.
It is. We're working on it. So this is a buddy of mine started this #buddy check.
Oh, nice.
And I wear this every time, and just so he knows, I often, if I start to get stressed or anything like that, I just start rubbing this as a kind of a little reminder. But yeah, and that's what in law enforcement we're trying to work on that more to make sure we're there. And I've actually got a really good group now of guys that I can talk to and all that. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, because if I'm the one that's in the trauma and I'm all kind of in my head, I'm saturated with grief or the anxieties, and I'm not sleeping straight. But as a partner, as somebody that knows you, if I notice that you're off, this is where, as a buddy, you have to be willing to have a hard conversation and be like, hey, I noticed that you're not sleeping. You look like shit. What's going on? And
Yeah.
don't let them off the hook, because you can ask once and they'll say, fine. So everyone does. How you doing? Fine.
Or some smart aleck joke.
Yeah, they
Move
just
on.
blow it off. So having a buddy, I've even had, because I've trained peer support teams, like other cops, to counsel other cops, like as a peer counselor. So I've done that all over the country. And one of the aspects I teach and promote, especially on here, is like having a buddy. And it doesn't have to be formal. It's just a commitment to your buddy that before you complete suicide, you'll call. It's an agreement.
I love that. I think that's great. I really do like that.
And then you remember, because then if you're in that spot and you go, I hate my life, I just want to, be done. You remember that you made that commitment to your buddy, and how shitty would it be for you to then turn your back on your buddy and hurt him like that, because they're trusting you and you're trusting them. And but you can't just assign it like the military, be like, you're the buddy, and like with each other. Nah, you find your own, like somebody who you can trust. And
I think
usually there's one.
we have that one person that we know. Oh, that's who. That'd be perfect with.
It's all you need is one. That's it. And sometimes therapists fill that role. Like, I know I fill that role for people. And then what I try to do, though, is remind them, this is practice. You and me, this is practice. You're going to do the same thing with somebody else, a buddy, and maybe eventually your family, if it makes sense. Because, like, we're talking trauma, too. So if you go and tell your spouse, hey, I went on all these crazy calls, or I dealt with all this crap, they also get traumatized in a way, too. They get a dose of it. So some people, some people can't handle that, and that's okay. You just got to know your people. And can they, a lot of times cops don't want to talk, and firefighters, too. They don't want to tell the specifics, which is fine. But here's what you do, though. Everybody can understand the emotion. They might not understand the details. Like, I was undercover and then this guy shot at me. Like, they don't understand what that was like, but they would understand how you felt. I was afraid for my life.
Yeah.
And I was confused. I didn't know what to do. I'm stressing. I don't know why I'm getting emotional right now. I think it just brings stuff back, Yeah. And I think about all the officers, and especially officers, because I think cops have a higher suicide rate than firefighters, because they're not always working in a group. They're a lot of times you're solo. And firefighters, like, you can go and like crazy stuff, and then you go back to the firehouse, and then you yip yap and you play games, and you try to, like, it's you
Is
got
it true
like
you usually have pillow fights? Is that the...
Yeah, you're like, yeah. Take your shirt off, pillow fight. Just before the chief gets there, and then you're like, we weren't doing anything. Yeah,
then straight.
That's how it goes. Yeah, but definitely. I mean, you have that social, like, support in a firehouse usually.
Right.
But then I would say, if there's firefighters on here too, then there's some firefighters are excluded, either from something they did or just the group itself. It's a groupthink thing. So if some people are oddballs and they don't connect real easily, then it can be kind of dangerous for that person. I'd argue that they're more vulnerable, and and then Abby, good point about cops not being appreciated. There's a lot of that, especially over the last few years. It's gotten worse, as you're aware. With police, in the public eye, especially. Everything's video camera, and you're scrutinized for every little thing. So I get it. There's bad eggs in every basket, but largely I'm happy when police show up, because I already know, like, they're here to help, And anyway, what's your take on that? What do you think about all this stuff here?
So obviously everything you said is spot on. And a lot of the same stuff I've heard. And I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm not going to dwell on a lot of it. But the one thing I take away from today, or I'd like other people to think about more than anything else, was kind of one of the last things you actually said. Find that buddy check person, because that's going to be, step one almost. Like, because you get to that dark spot. I'm going to throw this out every time we talk. There's an organization cop line, a number. I think it's cop line is the phone number. You will be talking and this is for law enforcement. You'll be talking to a retired law enforcement officer. It's completely anonymous, and they're not there to give you advice or anything like that. They are strictly there to listen. It is incredible.
There you go.
And once we get all our stuff listed, that'll be one of the ones that gets listed that people can come to our site and say, "Oh, hey, there's that." So I'll always throw them out.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. That's great.
This was definitely an emotional.
You made me cry twice, man. What are you doing?
You're just trying to win, all right? I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
So we forgot to do it last week, but I want to get back on this because I don't want to end. I don't want to say negative, but emotional. I want to end laughing. So we did this funny story to see how quick you can think on your feet and come up with one. I've got one already. So I'll throw mine out first and give you a second. Of course, I just forgot which one I was going to go with. I would. I did the whole prostitute one last time. So all right, I got one.
All right.
Oh man, I want to throw his name out too, but thank you, Abby.
Thank
so
you.
there was a guy that at this time I was buying street level narcotics. I was working for the district. I would literally be in jump out gear, which is a uniform type thing, one day, and undercover the next. Probably not the smartest thing in the world. But anyway, I had gone, and the night before, and this also tells you how quickly people get out, but I had arrested this kid. He had like 10 rocks on him, 10 cocaine rocks on him. Not a big deal, but it is selling. Next day, he's back out, but this time I'm in undercover clothes. And so I pull up. He's at a place that no longer exists called Piedmont Courts. Piedmont Courts is where I learned the police real well. It was public housing. It was considered like the most dangerous spot in all of Charlotte. And I got in so many fights and foot chases in that place. It's unreal. But I also, outside of those, some of the most memorable, good and bad, I sat with a kid from Christmas Eve to Christmas morning there because mom was out getting high. You name it, all kinds of, like, it was just that type of neighborhood. But anyway, so, see, I get emotional now when we're trying to have a funny one. That's messed up. Went down a wrong road there. So this guy was on the corner, this kid. I say kid, he was like 20. At the time, I wasn't much older. I was probably 25, 26. So he's on the corner. I roll up. He looks at me. He goes, "I know you." "Nah, man, you don't know me. Just I need my hookup, or I need a hookup." And he's like, "No, I'm sure I know you. You're a cop." "No, man, I definitely am not a cop, man. I promise." "No, I think you arrested me last night." I'm like, "What? How could I have arrested you now? You're way off." And I had a $20 bill in the cup holder, so I just put that in my hand. And he's sitting there. He's like, "I'm positive you're the cop." And he's stuck. And like I same thing with the prostitute. His eyes move over to that $20 bill. "No, man, I'm not a cop." "All right, I think you're the cop." Still gives me the crack cocaine rock and takes the 20. We have markings turn around, pull up on him right away, and arrest him. And I go talk to him, and we laughed, like both of us. He's in handcuffs, still laughing. I'm laughing, like, seriously, man.
Like,
How did you mess that up?
You shouldn't have messed that up.
And he's like, "Man, I don't know." It was funny. And again, he was out again the next day.
Of course.
Just, I mean, is what it is. Like, it's one of the ones I always felt bad for. He was doing stupid things, but he wasn't a horrible kid. He just needed to stop. Crack obviously hurts other people a lot, so he can't be doing that, but it wasn't necessarily that he was all that bad of a person. All right, what's your funny story?
All right. Well, I'll just leave you with a quick one. So we had this problem with sparrows in our like where our engines and all that stuff, all the fire apparatus. Sorry, I'm using lingo. In the garage, basically. And so the doors would be open, and the sparrows would come in, and they'd lay a nest, and then you couldn't get them out of there. And so a bunch of us went on a call. We came back, and the garage doors were closed like you're supposed to because it's supposed to be secure. But we got in there, and two of the engines that were in there used for like different purposes that weren't used on this call were in there, and they were running. And then we also saw smoke in there. And so we were like, holy crap, what is this? And we walked in, and the deputy chief was in there, and we thought, he's like trying to kill himself. Because he's like, you know, I don't know what he's doing.
Smoke out.
Yeah. And then we find out he was actually just trying to smoke the birds out, and it didn't work. The birds were still, they survived. They actually like went into the ceiling somewhere and we're fine, you know, but we came back, we were like, are you all right? Like, what are you doing? You know, like, what's happening right now? What's, you know, for real. So anyway, it was a good like comic relief after realizing like he was just trying to get the birds to no longer exist, but they survived, you know, so there you go, sparrow power.
Oh, that's a pretty good one.
Yep. So
well, we've taken up everybody's time long enough, I think, tonight. Yeah. Still working out. We're definitely going to be doing this competition thing so that I can prove cops are better than firefighters. I think I'm trying to figure out some ideas. Best way to do it to let everybody else vote on it.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes.
But hey, pay attention during the week because I'm going to keep posting videos of the workouts every day and the meditation, let everybody know how I'm doing. And I would love if other people comment, hey, I got my workout in today, I did my meditation today. Let's get a little community going on this.
And reach out. If you got questions, reach out.
Thank you. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in, y'all, and for people leaving messages and stuff. Yeah, Sparrow Power. That's right.
Oh, I do have one more thing real quick. I was thinking about, I think, and I'm going to throw this out here in front of everybody, and we talked about it a little, I think we should have a guest on. I have some ideas and some people I'm going to reach out on that may or may not be on here now or on here earlier that I think would be great guests. So maybe next week we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll even have a guest on. Something really beneficial.
Heck yeah, sounds good. All right.
Sweet. All right,
so firefighters are going to win.
Great week. Yep. See you next Sunday.
See you later. Adios.